Hello, Rachel Service, the CEO of the Happiness Concierge here, and the author of There Has to Be More, the Essential Guide to Personal Growth. Let's create your I Want list. This section is a game changer. By the time you've established where you are, you've assigned yourself a catchphrase, you've taken a glance back at the experiences that have made you as beautiful as you are right now, it's time to create your own version of success. Woo, woo, woo. And by doing that, we're going to create an I want list. If you're following along with the There Has to Be More guide, There Has to Be More Essential Guide to Personal Growth, we are on page 90. And if you're following along on the workbook, we are on page 49. So in this exercise, we're going to talk about 3 really pivotal questions that all are in service of finding what does a life look like that really makes your heart and soul and mind and body shine? And those questions simply are, I want to feel, I want to have, and I want to achieve. As we go through this I want list together, I'm going to pepper each column with a few examples, and then we're also going to break it down into what might be a short-term goal versus a long-term goal, a small stepping stone or a big step forward, and then of course the habit that you might need to put into place, or the schedule you might need to put into place. And as part of this, you'll also be invited to do a prioritization of your I want list in the next section, which is the game plan. So we've got all bases covered here. When it comes to looking at what you want, I know when I did this exercise 6, 7, 8 years ago for the first time when I created this exercise, I started by writing down what I think were the shoulds. I think it took me about 6 different goes to write down what I wanted. And in the I want list, in the workbook certainly, we've actually included not 1, not 2, but 3 versions of this exercise, just in case it should come up for you. And it's so tempting to write down what we think others might want. But remember, we've talked about separating ourselves from expectations. And the next step is finally to create our own version of success. So I want to gently invite you to the idea of I want to feel, or if feel's not the landing for you personally, you might simply say I want to be. So here are examples of I want to feel or I want to be. I want to feel energized when I go to work. I want to feel empowered when I'm with my friends. I want to feel confident when I'm at the gym. I want to be supported by my friends. I want to be intellectually stimulated. I want to be surrounded by people that light me up. Have a think about how you might want to feel or be, and scribble away or mentally reflect on what that might look like for you. The next section is, of course, I want to have. These could be material things, they could be spiritual things, they could be internal things. But the reason I've included this I want to have is because we all have a craving for security, safety, and support. So sometimes being really explicit about what our needs are, we go more into communicating our needs when it comes to the game plan section, it can really help us quantify or qualify what needs to be in place for us to have a sense of security and a sense of joy. So, for example, under the I want to have column, you might have examples of I want to have a job I enjoy. I want to have somewhere safe to live. I want to have a job that is secure, has a regular paycheck, for example. I want to have access to mentors or mentees. I want to have the confidence to say no. They could be material things, or they could be things to do with your confidence. It's really up to you. What would you like to have? And reflect on that. So for me, when this question comes up for me, when I first did it all those years ago, what I wanted to have was a job that creatively stretched me. And what I also wanted to have was my own apartment. Just so happens I only had a few dollars in my savings account, so that was a bit further away. But had I not been explicit about what I wanted to have in concrete terms, I might never have moved into my own apartment all those years later. I'm setting the intention, and I'm reminding myself of what's coming up for me, what I would love to have. And I tell you what, when I moved into my 1-bedroom apartment all those years later, I just I'm pretty sure I posted about it on my Instagram. I was just elated. It was a real full circle moment where I thought I wanted to have this and now I do. It's not about the material space so much. In fact, the apartment was tiny. It was about what it represented to me. For me, that was freedom. And the final question in the I want list is, what would I like to achieve? So this could be as simple as a feeling or as enriching as a goal that you'd like to achieve. So, if you're not sure where to start, you might think, well, what did I want to be when I was a kid? For me, I think I wanted to be a vet and then a chef and then a performer. So I don't know what those three archetypes have in common. Maybe my therapist could tell me. But some thought starters could include when I was a kid, I wanted to be. When I was at school, I wanted to be if I went to school, and what I'd love to be is something like that. So when you think about what you want to achieve, it could be as small as I say as a mindset, or it could be expansive as, say, receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award or writing a book. It's completely up to you. So, as we go through this exercise, you'll be populating your I want list. And if you have the Essential Workbook for personal growth, you'll be on page 49 and you'll see 3 columns. On the left-hand column is I want to feel, on the mid column is I want to have, and on the right-hand side column is I want to achieve. So as you go through and populate, how do I want to feel? What do I want to have? And what do I want to achieve? Let your mind wander. You might do this list on a Sunday afternoon. That's when I first did mine. Or you might do it over a little bit of time and take these questions on a metaphorical walk with you, right? So take your time with that. You might want to be empowered when it comes to your friendships. You might want to have an apartment for quiet time, and you might want to achieve a career that enlightens you or a relationship that fulfills you. Yeah. Now, to the left of this column, I've included a few thought starters when you're ready, and take your time with it. When you've extrapolated how you want to feel or be, have, and achieve, you can then look to this next section, which is, what is the timeline on this? And this is where we are able to do a sort of mini cull or mini prioritization process where we ask, is this a long-term or a short-term goal? And if this is a long-term goal or desire or hope or dream, is this something that we need to take small steps of action towards today? Like I did with the apartment, I needed to start putting some pennies away. Or is it more of a long-term goal that I could prioritize for later in my life? For me, that was writing a book, but I mentally thought I'll worry about that when I'm nearly 40. And now I'm nearly 40, so I'm kind of holding myself to that. So is it a short-term goal or a long-term goal? So as you look through your I want to feel or be, I want to have, and I want to achieve lists, have a think about, is this a short-term goal? E.g., I want to achieve this in the next weeks, months, and calendar year? Or is this a long-term goal I would like to achieve in the coming years, or would I need to prioritize that now or later? So to guide you whether you might want to prioritize that now or later, I invite you to ask one question deeper, which is, if I were to achieve this, have this, feel this, be this, what would be the smallest, tiniest step that I could take towards taking positive action? As I've mentioned earlier, in every one of our Happiness Concierge training programs, we always end the session with, what is one small step you can take as a result of today? What feels safe and a little bit stretchy as well? What is one small stepping stone you can do to achieve that feel, be, have, or be, have, or achieve I want list? Now, in the final category, you can ask, if this is a goal of mine and I'm clear on what the stepping stone to success might be, what would my daily, weekly, monthly, annual, quarterly habit need to be? And so we're thinking about the idea that all of our decisions and indecisions empower us to take action or indeed stall on our goals, right? So as you go through this list, have a think about, is this a short-term or long-term goal? What could the tiniest, smallest step be towards achieving that goal? And what could a habit be to bring that to life? So I thought it could be helpful to share a few examples to show you what that looks like within this framework. So, for example, I want my own apartment, as I've shared earlier. For me, that was a midterm goal. But when I looked at my bank account, there had to be a long-term goal. You know what I mean? So the stepping stone for me was actually Googling what apartment rent was in the area I wanted to live in. Did I have that cash in my bank account? No. Did I know how I was going to get there? No. But did I need a bit more information to make it real for me? Yes. And so by Googling the location I was wanting to live in or thereabouts, looking for average rates for rent, looking for what kind of quality of housing that looked like, I was able to take a concept that kind of seemed far away and make it real, bring it into my reality, and thereby my belief system that this was possible. As a second example, let's say you would like to be exercising regularly, or indeed at all. And if you're like me in the current lockdown in Melbourne, Australia at time of filming, you might, like me, have seen some of that incidental exercise fade away as we stay at home. So for example, let's say your timeline it's a short-term goal. It's something I want to kind of get back on. It's going to help with my health, and all of those things add up, right? So the stepping stone, might be to lower my expectations instead of signing up for a crazed diet or a fitness blast or a boot camp, which I've done before and actually been the benefactor of those results before. I'm going to opt to set an expectation that I exercise twice a week as a starting point. And just for 20 minutes, logging onto YouTube and finding some yoga to start stretching, that's a small goal that I can start creating, which leads me to, the habit which comes with that, which is booking in workouts or logging onto YouTube, and in this instance, which is my example, getting my spouse involved and say, hey, we're going to do yoga tonight, let's do it at 6 p.m. We'll go online to check out a class, a free class as a beginner, right? Or it might be, another example might be, I want to have friends who get me, right? And who doesn't want that? Certainly this came up for me when I did this exercise. So the timeline might be as soon as possible. That would be lovely, right? And so the stepping stone for me, I instinctively created what we now know as our people audit, which is actually in your game planning section, which is coming after the I want list. And we do this because we want to get really clear on what it is that you want before we look at debuting those wants out into the world. So for me, the stepping stone was creating a people audit, and the habit was, for me, as I've mentioned in earlier videos, just practicing saying no. Even though I didn't know how to totally find a group of people that reflected my vibe, I started to say no as the habit, and from that space was created. And from that space, all of a sudden, I had more energy to have more expansive conversations with people I knew, including asking for more, having more deeper conversations. Can you see where I went there? After saying no, it gave me the space, and as a result, I was able to have deeper conversations, which for an introvert like me was heaven. So have a look at your I want list. We've got a few copies in the Essential Workbook to Personal Growth, and of course in the Essential Guide for Personal Growth as well. Now, if you have any of those feelings like, I'm not sure about this, or I don't know, that's completely okay. For you to write down your I want list, you don't need to actually be fully convinced that it's all going to work out, right? You don't need to have the belief that it's possible yet if that comes up for you. But what is within your control is really listening to your inner voice, honoring that, and really making space to go, if anything was possible, what could be possible? Yeah. So if these thoughts, feelings do come up for you, you'll see that I've created a table which is on page 54 of the Essential Workbook. And the table here, I'm looking at my Essential Guide. I'm here on page 95 of the Essential Guide to Personal Growth. I've outlined a few of fear-based statements that can come up, barriers, and how to shift them into action-based statements. So as an example, let's say thoughts of, well, I would like to do what's on my I want list, but I've never done that before. Or I would love to start a side hustle, but where would the money come from? Or I would love to put my hand up for that promotion, but who am I to do that? We can start to turn our attention to the idea of positive reappraisal by focusing on an abundance mindset instead of focusing on what I could lose rather, which is a scarcity mindset. We can focus on an abundance mindset, which is what have I to gain? And indeed, psychologists call our hardwired need to focus on what we could lose loss aversion. We're so much more motivated to act by avoiding loss as opposed to gaining. So I just want to invite you to notice that if anything comes up as you write this I want list and you think, I've written this great I want list and oh my gosh, I have to take action. Who am I? And all these kind of doubts and fears come out of nowhere. It can feel like that. Just know that that's your brain's way of keeping you beautifully safe. And invite yourself to ask yourself, how could I write or table down these fear-based statements or thoughts and channel them into an action-based statement? So in the example of, I've never done this before, we might think about an action statement which could be, I haven't done this yet. The power of yet, Y-E-T, I haven't done this yet. And so in action, a small step, a stepping stone could be, what? I haven't done this yet. It's true. No lies there. Where's the lie? What would I need to know before I get started? Or what would I need to know once I get started? Momentum is a beautiful thing after all. For the second example, which would be, where would the money come from, right? You might think, for this to work, I will need to think about my income. Maybe first I would write either keep a document or look in my bank statement or look in my safe of, how much am I spending on an average month? You might look at the last 1, 3, 6 months, or even just the last month and say, how much does it cost to be me a month? And based on that, what might my requirements be? Information is power. And recruiters often say that actually when you're looking for new opportunities, it costs nothing to chat to a recruiter to see A, what the market rate is going out there, and B, how you can best, most importantly, apply your skills and passion for what opportunities might be out there. And the third example, which be, who am I to do that? If that's a fear that comes up, you might think about an action-based statement such as, what I know best, what I know for sure, as Oprah would say, is my personal experience. And so that's my own point of view. I'm going to start from there and then I'm going to I'm going to widen my scope of understanding. So yeah. And if not you, then who? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's food for thought as well. So we've included a table, of course, in your workbook as well. Yeah. Have fun with your I want list and just know that I do this regularly. I'm on the reg. I'm always doing an I want list. I'm always tinkering away with those goals because once you take small steps of action, for example, for me, recording this video, all of a sudden you got these videos online. You think, oh, tick that off my I want list. That's pretty cool. And fun fact, not everything in your I want list will maybe manifest itself in its entirety of how you write it down, but purely putting the intent into the world. Well, let your instinct guide you towards your next steps. Have fun with it. Good luck. As if you need luck, you've got a plan. And as always, feel free to reach out to me and or my team of beautiful happiness concierges at hello, HELLO, at happinessconcierge.com. Thanks for watching. See you soon.